Merry Christmas, everyone. Please take a seat. And let's also give a hand to our band for doing this for us this morning. I'm grateful for those who are early risers, for I was not one by nature, but by requirement. And I trust many of you are like me and can share in that sentiment today. But how joyous is it to be here together this morning, to share in Christmas Day, to mark the birth of the most incredible person who wasn't just any other person. So I'm going to invite the band to join the rest of us because we're going to open the Word of God today. And we're going to just get into this and get in touch with the heart of this season. And as I reflect, I'm going to ask everyone, how many times in the verses that were just read out did you hear the word love said? Anyone want to have a guess? How many times was the word love used? I hear some murmurs. We're having wonder. I need to hear a number. Come on. 1. 10? 7? I'll tell you what, unfortunately, it's a trick question. There were none. I see Luke Saywell back there is like, yes, I was right. Well, yeah, technically, any of the Greek words for love do not appear in any of those verses. And yet this story actually, so through it all, has the message of love hidden amongst it, even though the word love itself may not be mentioned. Because love itself is actually our topic today. We're now at the point of Advent, the point where we acknowledge that this moment of great transformation in our history occurs. And this is a moment that actually is so deeply wrapped in love that for us to begin to unwrap it, we're going to be reading from John 1 in a moment. Because John, although he doesn't recount the exact events of the birth, John instead chooses to write on its significance instead. Its significance in the life of the people of God. Now, whenever we can get that PowerPoint up, that would be brilliant, so that we can look into it. Because one of the points I want to make about love today is that love is felt when actions match the words. Because certainly I've known, my own father said to me once, he said, you know, your grandfather has never told me that he loves me, but I know that he does. He never said it, but I always knew from his actions that he did, although he did say to me, but I would have loved it if he had actually used the words too. But just the same goes to say that if one is always hearing, I love you, I love you, I love you, but if the actions do not show it, then we are left actually in doubt as to whether that love is in any way something we have felt and experienced and know to be true. Throughout our history, God has actually shown us that He has done a lot to not only say it, but do it. And this occasion is no different. Let's look into it. The first 5 verses of John chapter 1, where it reads, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him was not anything that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. This alone is John beginning to grapple with, why is this birth significant? Because it wasn't like anything else. You know, those words, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And everything was made through Him. There was not anything not made through Him. So whom are we talking about here? If we want to have that good Sunday school answer, we know the answer is Jesus. John is talking about Jesus. Jesus is the Word. He was there at the beginning, and there was nothing in the world that was made not through Him. Jesus is intimately part of this process because throughout our history, Jesus was there the whole way. So from the beginning, we started off with love. We were made good. We were made in a perfect world. And then we distorted the love that we had from God because we experience it in this world and this time as well. Anytime we take love and we distort it by trying to mix it with something else that isn't the love we have with that person or for that particular value, whatever you want to call it, once we mix it and dilute it, it is no longer pure. It becomes messed up. It becomes confused. In the same way as trying to bring something else into a love that is reserved for only one person or for one God, it messes up. And then God restores us to love. And then we distort it again. It's like we don't learn the lesson. And we go through this over and over. The cycle constantly repeats. By this point when Jesus is born, it's no different. People are still struggling. The cycle continues to repeat. Being restored to God, but then also falling away from God. And the relationship with God is at a time of low. Because those who worship this God, our God, were very few. And those of them that did exist were under the dominion and tyranny of the Roman Empire, who worshiped different gods of their own making. And they only tolerated the beliefs of the Jewish people, the people of God, because they went, as long as it's not a nuisance and a problem for us, we'll tolerate it. But the moment it is, it's done. The Romans were incredibly efficient at destroying anything they saw pose a threat. And so the people of God were in this place of struggle because they were in a time in which they barely had enough wealth to get through the year. As I read once, it said half the time of the year you made enough to get by, and the other half of the year you didn't. You just had to struggle consistently, constantly. And the people of God were waiting for a solution to all this. Their solution was in the promise of the Messiah, because the Messiah in their mind was going to be someone like David, because it was predicted he'd come from the line of David. And who was David? Well, they thought of a warrior king. He will throw out the Romans, we'll become wealthy again, we'll have dominion over our neighbors, and so on and so on. Jesus was there through all of this. He was there through the people of God's struggle. He was there through the people of God's wrestling with all this. Even there, as the people of God were forming their own expectations of what they hoped he would do. But all of the hints were already there as to what he was going to do. But throughout that history, it's not that when Jesus was born, he suddenly became real. He was not suddenly in existence at the point of his birth. We think about it that way as humans. We go, well, my birth was the beginning of my life, and so it was for Jesus. But Jesus is not ignorant of who we are, our history, and what we've been through, not even at this point. At his birth, he has already been there throughout our history. He knows you and I. He knows what we labor with. He knows our struggle. And John continues, verse 6 to 8. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but came to bear witness about the light. We're talking about Jesus today, and there's always a part of me when I read this part of John's account that I goes, why are we talking about John? John is not important. It's Jesus who is important. But actually, John is important for a very valuable reason, which is his involvement in playing the role of guiding people to Jesus was showing God's invitation to us to participate in our own salvation. We could be part of the solution even though we are not the solution. He's inviting us to go, won't you participate with me in the love that exists in hardship, that persists even in hardship? Because although we as God's people at times might realize that we truly have nothing to our names, like the people of that day, they didn't have wealth, they didn't have power, they didn't even have the freedom to determine how their country would be ruled or this or that. Mary and Joseph certainly didn't have much to their names at all. They were in fact forced to travel across the country for a census they probably didn't even want to participate in, to go to Bethlehem. And where they are in Bethlehem, discover that there's not even a guest room free for them. They have to accept less than desirable conditions just to do a job they probably didn't even want to be there to do. but they persisted with each other most undoubtedly because love has to exist in hardship. If love doesn't exist in hardship, how can it be considered love? So Mary and Joseph are living this out. They've probably been compelled by fear, but they're pushing on because of love. And despite all that they suffer, they would welcome the source of life himself. Even the fact that they were welcoming their own son must be a source of incredible joy to them. Like in all this darkness, suddenly there's new life. But for them, they knew it wasn't just new life. This is the Son of God who's come to save us. A moment of incredible hope. And how does God show us this same love and hardship? He basically says, even though I have all the power in the world, I have all the treasures of the world in my grasp, even though I lack for nothing, I'm going to choose to accept your undesirable conditions. In that sense, he means, I could have sent my son to be born of a king. He could have grown in luxury. He could have grown in privilege. He could have grown in security. But instead, I'm going to let him be born to the poorest among you, the least known among you, those whom perhaps you even thought were undeserving of such an honor. And my son who is going to grow up with all of the same struggles they do. That's how we know Jesus actually knows what it's like to struggle and to love in hardship as we do. He said, I want to show you that my love doesn't come purely from a place of easiness from me, but I am willing to get down with you and do the hard work with you and show you that my love can remain pure even in hardship. I'm doing this to elevate love, not to be compelled or become a victim of fear in our world. And I'm doing this to bring you everlasting life, a solution to your struggle, that your hardship might become lightened. So God sees us in our hardship and goes, you know what? My love exists even in your hardship, and to show you, I'm going to come and do it with you. How incredible. Because for the people of God, we, as even we do today, when we have the promise of God, sometimes struggle in the waiting. For the people of God, it was the struggle too. The prophecy spoken about the coming of the Messiah had been spoken hundreds of years before they were finally fulfilled. And yet for every generation since they were spoken, they were undoubtedly going, is that the Messiah? Perhaps this time will be the Messiah. Will the Messiah come in my generation? And there would be heroes who would come, but they wouldn't be able to save Israel and save the people of God forever. So they would do good works, but then it would fall apart after they died or even during their lifetime. And there were even others who came along claiming to be the Messiah, but they didn't fit all of the signs. And they still couldn't save God's people. All for nothing, all for nothing. And there's that element that creeps into their hearts, as I know it creeps into ours, is it becomes that skepticism. What if he's never coming? What if this is never going to happen? Or maybe if we just do it this way, we'll see it happen. But none of it matches up to what God gives as signs of him delivering on his promise. Because what were those signs? Through the signs of the scripture, we see that he said there will be a star out of Jacob. He speaks about there being a star that will point to a ruler who will crush Israel, God's people's enemies. And it said that he would come from the line of David. So David, the mighty warrior king. One of the things I also note, although we may not always be interested in reading the genealogies, one of the things about the genealogies of Jesus is that it points out that Jesus is descended from David from Bathsheba, and it notes her as Uriah's wife. Now, that's actually a rather shameful thing to put to David, but actually it's there to point out that even David, for all of his greatness, all of his love of God, still needed salvation. So he said, this Messiah will come from the line of David. He'll be born in Bethlehem, and he will be born of a virgin mother. All of these signs, they're waiting somehow that they will be fulfilled. And they had to somehow maintain a hope that love would be on the horizon. Because anytime our hardship continues, we just sometimes hope, I hope that light at the end of the tunnel is getting close. Or I hope that light is somehow nearer to me than I realize. that my hope can be alive today, as you and I might hope. Because I don't know, I expect many of us have promises from God that we've heard or read in the Word, and we go, when is that going to be fulfilled for me? It may not be in our time, but it is on the horizon. God is there with us in that exhaustive waiting, and He plans to deliver. Because somehow, this is what boggles me. I want to read this out. Because somehow, this unknown Nazarene couple who heard from an angel saw miraculous pregnancies at the time they are due to give birth happened to be ordered by foreign authorities to go to Bethlehem for a census, as a star in the sky points to where they are, that even foreign philosophers recognized just happened to have a baby boy in the exact place, time, and conditions that God had set hundreds of years beforehand. Doesn't it blow you away? It's like, man, I hate waiting. I really do. It's like, that's why I ordered most of my gifts through Amazon. I mentioned that. But the waiting, there is reward in the waiting. We don't always like it. We go, God, why can't the promise be delivered now? Why can't it be delivered tomorrow? Why can't it be delivered yesterday? But yet somehow God did something so remarkable here, because there's no way that Joseph and Mary could have concocted a plan to make all this happen. They didn't plan the census. They weren't probably even planning to give birth in Bethlehem. God arranged that so that the signs would be fulfilled. My gosh. That's how we know this only could have been from God. This wouldn't have happened except for events that God most likely aligned for His godly purpose, as a sign that through hardship He delivers. Continuing on, verses 9 to 13. The true light which gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through Him, yet the world did not know Him. He came to His own, and to His own people, and His own people did not receive Him. But to all who did receive Him, who believed in His name, He gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, not of the will of man, but of God. This shows God's love of the humble. There's God's love for the humble, because He actually, amongst those He drew to greet Him at that first place, He's come into a world that would not receive Him, except those who would receive Him have the right to be called children of God. And who among them are they? The shepherds and the Gentiles. And both groups of these people were considered undesirable and undeserving. It's like, why of all should they be there? Like, in the minds of many of God's people at that time, like, surely only kings should be there. Surely the Pharisees or the teachers of the law, the high priest, all of the people who have the most to claim to goodness and faithfulness should be there. And yet it's the shepherds and the Gentiles who were considered dirty in comparison, unclean. Like, if you had a party, you're hoping these guys don't respond to the invite. You're hoping they don't show up. Because the image they had of them was kind of like this: a shepherd trying to chase his flock, trying to organize them, falling over, getting dirty. They had a messy job. There was this perception of them like, they stink of sheep. We don't like them around. The shepherds were looked down on in the same way the Gentiles were, because, again, they were seen as dirty. Their ways are different. Their beliefs are different. They are entirely disgusting to us in the same way as the shepherds are, because to us they're like physically revolting. And yet these are the people God called to greet His Son. And because they did, they have this promise that was spoken in this word, that is, they would have the right to become children of God. This should put us in a position where we realize, like, it's not for us to judge who can come and receive Jesus. Just because of how people happen to be, regardless of whether they're dirty to our eyes or whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. Are they any more any more dirty than we are when we really think of ourselves and we go, I know I've got a lot of dirt in my life, I've got a lot of mess in my life that really needs cleaning. I'm like this shepherd. Sometimes I'm foolishly trying to rush around getting the job done. And some of the stuff I've seen about sheep too is that sheep can be pretty stubborn and sometimes also ram the shepherd. They fight back. It's like sometimes I realize I can be like that with God. But God would have me to do this foolish work too. Because these foolish people didn't consider that they were too good to come to see Jesus. They weren't too good. Jesus himself would say as much later on. Because in Mark 10, verse 45, he says, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for the many." Again, he has every right to be served. But he goes, "No, I've come to show you that I am willing to come and live as a man to show you how possible it is to live a life that is close to God, that lives in the joy of his righteousness, that lives close to him in unity and in joy of his grace and mercy. I have come to serve to show you that actually through service is how we achieve freedom." That runs against our minds. That runs against how we think. The way Jesus actually came to do things, he came in and he said, for me to solve this problem for you, I have to turn your understanding upside down. I have to turn it upside down. Then Matthew 23, "For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." Thus, we actually see that even happen at the point of his birth, in the point that Herod wasn't there, the priests weren't there. Those who exalted themselves were humbled in the fact that they weren't even there to witness his coming, the one they had been waiting for, at least as far as the people of God were concerned. The priests would have been, thinking they were the ones to witness and greet him. But the humble, the shepherds and the Gentiles, were the ones who were exalted to be in his presence at that beautiful, perfect moment. Jesus affirmed all of this as he got into adulthood to say, again, my love is for the humble, not for those who think they have it all together, because we're very good at imposing illusions on ourselves to make ourselves like, I've got it all together, I don't need it. But in the same sense, he also wanted to defeat another illusion, that you had to get your life together before you could come to Jesus. These shepherds, these Gentiles still were not, perfect according to this or that description. But Jesus said, I can do something with these broken people because they've come to me. John 14. And it says, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. Glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth." So we've had love throughout history. We've had love for the humble. Now it's at the realization that his love in this moment was to provide us hope. Because through him, we realize that God came in the flesh. That's actually significant, because the easiest way for us to lose hope is to feel that we are unlovable. I've heard that expression before, that fear that sometimes nags underneath the surface is like, am I just by nature of who I am unlovable? And as a consequence of that, irredeemable, unsavable. But Jesus, by taking on humanity, affirms that it's not our humanity itself that's the problem. It's our fallenness in humanity that he has come to help resolve. And by becoming human himself, he is saying, you are not detestable to me. I'm coming to be like one of you. Thus mirrors his promise about saying those who are humble and come to me have the right to become children of God. So as he becomes human, he's saying, I'm also inviting you to become something more than human. There's a beautiful symmetry in that Jesus is saying, look, don't consider yourselves so unloved that I'm not willing to come and be just like one of you. And also don't think that I'm willing to just leave you in your situation, that I'm not willing to accept you and make you one of mine. As a child of mine, not just a creation, but a child. I show you that humanity, as our image of it has become distorted by our distorted love, humanity can actually be holy and pure as we see it in Jesus. When he walked in perfect relationship with the Father, we go, wow, how is he able to somehow live all these difficult challenges in perfect harmony? That's what he came to show us. He provided us this hope that as he made us in his image, and I put this in reverse so it would mirror, but in reverse, if you can't read it, it says, and he takes on humanity. So he made us in his image, so we were made to be like him. And then even though he had no need to become like us, he goes, you know what? I'm going to take on humanity too. So Jesus is perfectly, fully God and fully man. You know, it's his privilege to give his image to us, but it's a compliment to us that he takes on our image. It's an incredible thing. He affirmed his loving design by doing so, by again stating, humanity is not a mistake. I made you like this. And by taking on humanity, I am affirming to you that actually you are part of my holy design. You are not by yourselves unholy, simply that what sin has entered your hearts, entered your minds, and afflicted your world has been what has corrupted it. So I ask, I'm sure he asks all of us, are you willing to affirm the same loving design I have for you? That I have come to provide to you. That's why I bring it to John 3:16, 17, the famous verse. Because this summarizes, again, John, the God disciple John, so well understood the heart of these truths. He so perfectly understood and so amazingly put them into words where he said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. His coming in the flesh, like it's kind of like if I heard, as I have done in the past in different jobs, when we heard someone from the regional branches coming in to visit us, it felt like an inspection. You know, you feel like you want to get everything sorted. You don't want them to find anything undesirable. You don't want them to see that you've been skirting around the rules or anything like that. There can be a sense in us that if we, as the people of God, we're expecting Jesus, God, to be born about that time, there might have been that feeling like he was going to come in a way that would provide judgment because he would find everything out of order. But he did not come to condemn. He came that the world might be saved through him. Because he came to provide the hope. He came to show love for the humble. He came to say that even though throughout our history you've had this complicated relationship with him, he said, I'm not willing to leave this complicated relationship or abandon it. Because so many times throughout the word he said, neither will I abandon you nor will I forsake you. So many times God affirmed to us his love. And that's why the sending of his son is saying, even though I could have given up on you, I'm not, and I'm going to show my love to you in a new way that you haven't seen before. By doing this, he shows his love for us, humankind. He shows his love for you. He shows his love for me. He shows his love for our family, our friends, our community, even our enemies and our world. What better sign of love can there be? No more than like if someone in your family or someone loved you was in hospital and you would want in your heart to rush to be by their side. That's like God to us. He sees us in distress and he goes, I want to rush to be alongside you and bear the burden with you. But he comes knowing that he's brought the cure. He has come to say, I am willing to pay the price that has been inflicted so that you can be let go. You can be released from hospital. You can be restored and healed. It's like Jesus saying, I'm literally doing a whole body transplant and I'm giving it all to you. Not a single organ. I'm giving my whole life for you. And he has. This is the message of love we hear today. That throughout history, God's love has been for the humble, and by doing so, he provides hope for us as humankind. He has given us hope. So here's our reflections today as we celebrate Christmas. As you reflect on God's love, what inspires you today? What about God's particular love that endures, that continues to love those who are humble, who loves to provide hope, who loves humanity, who loves the world? What about that love that he showed through the birth of his son inspires you and me today? And then the other thing I'll also put up there is a challenge. Don't forget to share the love that we have from Jesus as we celebrate today. It would be a shame, a crying shame, that the day of his birth wouldn't be one of those special occasions where we particularly share in his love. Let's pray.